feel like Darth Vader. Luke, I am your father. Wow.
Yeah, we just got that on film.
Did we actually?
Yeah. So, welcome. Breakfast time with the stews. So, we were talking about before we started recording. What is the difference between, let's say, nationalism in Sweden, England, and other places like that, and nationalism in America?
Well, America is not, it's an artificial race. It's not really a race. It's an artificial nationality built off of many different cultures and many different nations. So you can't be nationalist like homogeneously for one nation or ideal. You can be nationalist for the culture and idealism that is the American dream and the Constitution that it represents. Whereas Sweden, England, these are homogenous cultures with like one people. And if those people will decide to go nationalist, they are nationalists for their people, their culture, their identity. Whereas we're nationalists for an ideal and a standard set of laws that we believe in that are unique. So
the claim that if we do nationalism in America, or we become a little bit more nationalist, is that a claim of becoming more white nationalist?
I'm sure that is how they were trying to spin it. But again, the reason that there would be a lot of white nationalists is because at the moment there's a lot of white people in the country. There would be per capita just as many patriots of any other race in this nation. So,
but what is the basis? What is the foundation of the Constitution?
Life. I mean, we the people.
Right.
Right.
The Declaration of Independence?
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Okay, so the Declaration of Independence claims what?
That there are certain unalienable rights God given to every man.
Like man, like M-A-N, only man?
Men, it was like men, and that's what they used back in the day to say like everybody, mankind.
Mankind?
Yeah.
Humankind?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that logic, nationalism in America is talking about focusing on those rights.
Right.
The Bill of Rights.
Correct.
The 10 Bill of Rights and everything that, and equality, right? So the Declaration of Independence was written, and then subsequently the Constitution was written. Was the Constitution, remembering the foundation and the basis of, was the Constitution written for white men only?
No, it was written for remembering this basis, it's written for everyone. It was just there were people in power that were able to control things, and their agenda was not what was constitutional. So there was just, like everything, there are bad people that kind of ruin the idealism of any document or anything, and it's all about interpretation. So they interpreted, that is...
You can't use open days.
True.
You can't, because they could be anybody. You have to get very specific, not super specific, but you have to get a specific group of people of whom you're speaking about. You've used too many theys already. And so now we're confused about who the they is.
Right. Southern states, the reason they said they were able to do these things was, one, black people were not human, therefore they didn't get those rights. They were not for those rights. They are property. Property do not have constitutional rights. The only rights that property have is like the owner's rights to when they get lost or something like that. So that was one way that they were kind of like subverting black people's rights. And so it was all about like finding loopholes to be like, they're not human, they don't get these rights until it comes to vote.
So there's two pieces of evidence that shows that the Constitution wasn't written for white males only. The Declaration of Independence, which claims that all men are created equal by their Creator, and created equal means that they have the same opportunity as everybody else. Obviously, we're not all created equal. I have muscle, you don't.
I will one day.
You have hair, I don't. So obviously we're not created equal in that aspect, but we all have been created we have all been created equal to take advantage of the opportunities that have been set before us. That's the first piece of evidence. The second piece of evidence is the 3/5 compromise that was made by the Congress, by the United States Congress, then saying that 3/5, that essentially black people are 3/5 human. So those are the two pieces of evidence that shows why America is not, why the Constitution was specifically created for all people. You know, bounce forward all the way up to Lincoln during the Civil War. It's because the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, which is based upon, because of these documents, these long-standing abuses, atrocities, and tyrannies and oppression could not stand. And you either had to ignore the facts that black people are human, and all the states have to become slavery, have to embrace slavery, or you have to abolish it. Even Lincoln said, you know, a house divided cannot stand. A divided against itself cannot stand, right? So that makes sense. So that's the basis. And that's the evidence that goes against the people who are saying that the Constitution needs to be changed. There's like this crazy agenda. The Constitution needs to be changed because it was meant for only white men. Well, there's two glaring pieces of evidence in the very beginning of the country that shows that that's false. Cut forward to Lincoln, that's the third piece. Cut forward to 64, during the Civil Rights Movement, that's the fourth piece. Jim Crow law was not federally sponsored. It was allowed because it was a delicate situation between the federal government and the sovereign, the rights of the states to be sovereign, but the states still have to fall underneath the Constitution. In my opinion, there was no need for civil rights because the civil rights were already written in the Constitution, the original 10 Bill of Rights. What changed was the definition of person. The lawful definition of, the legal definition of person. That's been changing and morphing over the time. So you're not changing the actual definition of the word, you're changing the legal definition of the word. I say person, it means something completely different than what the law means. We can get into that, in another video. But that's what changes. That's what morphs. The dangers between changing words, and the danger of saying, "Oh, the Constitution needs to be updated because it doesn't apply now." It applies now. It's the very fundamentals of regular society that believes in all of its freedoms. Want to expand on your ideas?
I mean, I've heard arguments like that a lot, and it's these people. They always say they're like, we don't trust the government. And
These people.
The people I will talk to, and they will be like, hey, we should change the Constitution. There are things in there that we don't need anymore. The right to bear arms isn't as important as it is anymore.
Why are they saying that?
Well, they said that the right to be safe and have our children be safe is more important than like the right to go hunting and stuff like that.
So is that what the Second Amendment protects?
No. Honestly, the Second Amendment is so that you could have a civilian militia at any given moment be ready to like overthrow any sort of corrupt government or protect from threats, foreign and domestic. So if we got invaded, there's about 3 layers of things they'd have to go. They'd have to go through the military, Then they have to go through law enforcement and then the civilians would have guns too. And that makes America one of the safest countries there is. Other than that, a government that gets too froggy, which it has been for a very long time, and to the point where we're just like, enough.
Are we anywhere close, in your estimation, to armed revolution?
There are a lot of memes about it. I don't know if memes are going to be accurate, like, scales for it, but I would say the tension is rising. The more people are trying to step on gun owners' rights, then they're starting to...
Well, it's more than just gun owners' rights, right? They're even starting to go after the First Amendment now.
The more people realize how much their way of life is under attack for absolutely, really no good reason, people are starting to buck back.
But armed conflict just comes to a point where there is no other way.
Right.
Like, we have spoken about this, we have debated this, and that's what's so important about freedom of speech. If we keep on cutting, if we do get to the point where we do shut down the First Amendment, right, where you can only say some things that are allowed, mandating speech or certain types of speech is dangerous because it shuts down the quintessential format that we have as a nation to be able to discuss our ideas,
right,
and to be able to not compromise but come to an agreement. I guess compromise and agreement are the same thing.
Consensus.
But I think that to me, in a debate, and I'm not trying to change the definition of the word compromise. You gave up something, and they gave up something.
Right.
So, and that's
for something you guys both
agree on, right? So, the thing about that is, if you continue to compromise, you continue to give up,
you still lose real rights.
You're still losing until there's nothing left to lose. Now, if you can come to an agreement, which I guess in a sense essentially is to compromise, I feel that you can mutually come to a point where both sides feel as though they did not lose. Now, there is an extreme. There's the leftists, and then there are the people who are also dangerous in a different way. Isolationism, isolationists, white nationalists, quote, white nationalists. Examples of those are Nazis and KKK members and people who are just racist and prejudiced, because those are two different things. And you have that side of the spectrum. Now, both sides of those spectrums are extremely dangerous. So, if both of those sides, they're going to lose something. They're extremists. They're dangerous. They deserve a voice, and they deserve to be listened to, and their ideas taken in consideration. But communism, socialism, extreme nationalism, fascism is not the way to go. And it is of my opinion that extreme nationalism and extreme and fascism is a leftist idea. Because in order for those agendas to take place, you have to have an extreme amount of government interference. Anarchists, they're not good. But they do have some points that are valid.
Yeah, I talked to an anarchist. It was interesting. They believe a lot in, like, they trust humanity a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what communism does. like the actual idea of communism is basically trusting in humanity, and you know, when people think anarchy, they think like, oh, I'm just gonna roll around and just shoot people in the face and take their women and, you know, rape and pillage. It's not necessarily anarchy. It's just, I mean, that's
What some
that's what it would be.
Yeah.
But the idea of it is just to have no government, and there has to be a hierarchy. Every single level of nature in the universe that we know of has levels of hierarchy. It's even within our solar system. There's levels of hierarchy. There's the sun. You can't live without the sun, but if you're too close to the sun, then you die. If you're too far away from the sun, then you freeze and die. You have Jupiter that's running around. You have the big giant gas planets that are on the outside of the solar system, which are protecting us from a majority of the meteors and all that other stuff from hitting us after all the dust settled and we became an actual solar system, right? And then we're in the green zone in the galaxy, rotating around the eye of the galaxy, which they theorize is a giant black hole, right? So there's hierarchy in everything. You're too close. You need a set order of things in order to exist, survive, and prosper. It's the way with everything, and it's the way of the world. It's the way of the universe. It's the way of the galaxy is the way of the universe. There's no way to escape that.
Well, I'm sure, not that I'm for anarchy, they were advocating that on a smaller level. So you'd have community-based creeds. You'd have, I am big chief, you are semi-chief, you are peasant, and you work for me. Because that's what it would come down to. The guy that has the most people with him, or he's the toughest, he'd end up running things. And
right.
But on a smaller communal level. And then you'd have a bunch of tiny little communities doing their thing, going to war. It'd be like Native Americans, essentially.
Well, I think, I'd have to really, honestly, I would have to look into the anarchy more about it. But yeah, like, I think socialism definitely works in a very small community, you know? Or could work, I should say, in a very small community. Communism works in a very small community, you know, like a neighborhood. Everybody has a job, has a role to fulfill, and everybody fulfills that role. We have a role, we need someone to fit that role. Oh, you're here, you're going to fit that role. You put in your work, you get rewarded by the community. In turn, you reward the community with your service. It definitely can possibly work within a small community. But on a nationalized community that is 300 million plus, could never work. Examples of that is a very small island called Cuba. Then you bump that up to communist China. They have a very interesting dynamic right now because they're doing very well economically. It's like what is it called? Capitalist communism?
Capcom.
Capcom, yeah, exactly. So that's a very interesting dynamic. I'd really like to do a little bit more research into that and see how they're working that out. And, you know, Russia and all that other stuff. But
well, they made a lot of trade deals with a lot of different countries for them to invest in making their stuff in China.
Yes.
So they pretty much have the whole world to unlock economically. So that's why we gotta not be reliant on China.
Has to be. I always, at all times, never should America be dependent upon any entity, any resource from a foreign.
Yeah.
We need to be independent so that we can make those calls. We're fallible because we're humans and we make mistakes, but the mistakes that we make, we can admit that they're mistakes, whereas other countries were like, oh no, we didn't make a mistake, and if you say that we did, then you're going to disappear. You know?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. But to get back, but if you can't talk about these things, then number one, you're not exposing your ideas to the world. And number two, through exposing your ideas to the world, you are not being subject to scrutiny. And that's what the leftists, not liberals, not progressives, not independent people, or whatever you want to call them, the people who vote independently or claim the independent party. Nobody else. I'm talking about the extreme leftists. And in my opinion, the extreme leftist is, if you disagree with me, this is my definition of a leftist. If you disagree with any of their policies, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're Uncle Tom, you're blah, 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 all the other adjectives that they like to throw out, right?
Right.
And at that point, you don't listen to those people. Just like if someone walked up and said, white power, you no longer listen, right? But then that also, like, having said that out loud, that contradicts what I actually believe is engaging people. And so you have to engage those people. But you automatically know that these people are not a danger because their ideas are so far left field, because white power is a left field thing.
Right.
It's not a right. It's not a alt-right thing. There's no such thing as a alt-right. Alt-right basically comes down to isolationalists who just want us to stay within our country and let everybody else be there. Because what they're trying to do is conserve every single thing American, right? And that's too far. We have to be engaged with the world, or else it's China and Russia who are engaging in the world. Because everybody else has absolutely no sway on the world stage. And that's just, there's three countries: Russia, China, and America. Canada has say. Norway has say. Britain has say.
They kind of do now.
Who?
More so, Britain.
Well, they have say for their own country. They went away. They bounced out of the European Union and they became isolationists, right? And the only time will tell to see if that worked out for them.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
France. None of these countries have any type of force or actual military that if Russia decided to jump or China decided to jump and America stayed out of it, they're done. Brazil, they have say. Chile, Venezuela, Cuba, Japan. What country in the world, what singular country in the world is standing up against China or Russia? There's only one, and we're standing up against both. And that's America. It's a heavy responsibility, and because we have that responsibility, and because our idealism is life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and all people are created equal, that's the idealistic form of what we're thinking of. That's what we're trying to introduce to the world, and we make mistakes because we don't understand the culture. We try to make changes to people's government without really understanding the culture, and that's where we fail the most. Like in Japan, I think we were pretty successful. We invested a lot of time and money, and we're still invested in them. 70 plus years later.
Right, and now they're super loyal too.
Well, I don't know about that, but they're an ally. They are friends.
South Korea has a pretty good military at the moment.
But if North Korea decided to move,
I don't know.
I honestly say, man, because it all depends on how corrupt the South Korean government is and how happy the people are. There's no such thing as a government that has no corruption. Every single government has corruption. It depends on if it's like, South Vietnam corrupt or you know, America corrupt, or what's another one? Australian corrupt. You know, it all depends on how corrupt they are. You know.
Yeah, wasn't South Vietnam like horrid, but we supported them just because they were like communist, and so we needed somebody.
Yeah, they were not. Yeah, they were not communists. That's basically it, you know. But it was basically like the guy was almost like North Korea in the sense that they were trying, you know, they were
like killing gays and didn't like gay people.
No, it wasn't that. It was they were ignoring a huge population of their populace, which were the Buddhists, and going like straight Catholic, and they were all about them making money for them and the family and being prestigious, and not about serving their country. So, and that's supposed to be the difference in America versus every other country, is that we vote our representatives that represent our ideas. They don't tell us what's good for us. We tell them what's good for us. And they do that under the guidelines, under the bumpers, bowling reference there, under the bumpers of the Constitution.
But a lot of people have forgotten that, and they've become more and more statist.
And that's because we're not allowed to talk. Everything that I say that's against someone who I consider on the left ideas, the moment they call me a racist, or they call me a straight male Uncle Tom, or whatever the case may be, that's their ability to have a conversation.
Yeah, that's like their cap.
Because they were fed this line of bullshit, and they don't know how to have a discussion, because they never had to discuss ideas outside of their bubble. I can sit down and I can have a very intelligent conversation with somebody, and they can give me a bunch of information, and they can actually morph how I believe. Like, for example, women in the military is a problem because their physical standards are different than men's, but yet they have to do the same exact job. Especially now that they're allowed to be on the front lines. So a male has to run a mile in, hypothetical fictitious number, but it should be pretty close. A male has to run a mile and a half in, like, 11 minutes? 13 minutes? Somewhere around there. Let's just say 10 to 13 minutes, okay? A female has to run a mile and a half in like 13 to 15 minutes, right? A male has to do 25 push-ups, a female has to do like 15 or 18 or something like that, right? But they still have to go to the same exact spot. They should still have to be able to carry all of their stuff, which is about 80 pounds is the loadout, right? They still have to carry all that stuff. They still have to perform in the field. Well, the standard should be universal. And if it's not, then we have a problem, because we're putting people who are not
equally
physically meeting the standard. Now, mentally, they could be down. They could be awesome. They could be it. They could be the best commander, field commander ever, right? But at the same time, that's where my disagreement with females being in the military is right now. Only females who can meet the standard, right?
Do you think you're gonna have them?
Of course there are. Of course there are. You have women on every end of the spectrum, you know, like that boy who decided that he was going to be a girl and run track. He didn't even meet the top 100. He wasn't even the top 100 fastest in his state, but he was the number one fastest in the girls, you know, track team. Like in the state, this person went to state, right? How's that fair to the females? It's not at all. He's not even the 100th fastest person, a male. So I'm a female, and now I'm breaking female records. It's bullshit. So, but at the same time, I don't want to stop females from joining the military. Like, that's why I'm not saying no females in the military. I'm not saying that. I do feel that way. But if they can meet the standard, they love their country, they want to die for their country, they want to defend their country, then who am I to stand in their way? I feel the same thing about gays. I don't think gays should be in the military. Because the logistics of barracks and all that other stuff, it's easy to separate males and females. You put all the gays in a barrack. You know what I mean? It's like putting males and females together. There's going to be tension, right? And so it's harder to separate.
I had it.
But at the same time, these people want to defend our country. They believe in the rights afforded to them. They are willing to die in service for their country. It's difficult for me to say, well, you want to do these things, but because of your lifestyle, I say a hard no. We have to find a way to enable people who have same-sex orientation a means to fight for their country and the ideals that we believe in. Same thing for females. We need to be able to afford them or find them opportunities that will enable them to defend the country and the Constitution and the ideals that they believe in. So it's important to me that we try to find a solution for that. Even though it goes against my other belief. And see, that's the difference between most conservatives that I know and other people that are not conservatives. It's difficult for people to differentiate between would it be prejudice? Am I prejudiced? I don't know. Maybe. My prejudiceness and what is actually right. I may see a female and automatically judge her in the military. I may automatically judge her if she's on my fire. We're gonna go on a firefighting team, we're gonna fight fires. I'm thinking there are dudes that will be hard pressed to drag me out of a situation if I get injured, or just to kind of move me out of the way. Let's say I'm on the lead hose and I fall out. Well, I'm in the way of fighting fires. You gotta be able to move me out of the way. There's guys that would have a hard time doing that. 99% of the females that I know who are serving in the military would not be able to. That might be anecdotal, but the ones that have been on my fire team, a female who's like 5'4", 110 pounds. Most men in the military are not 5'4", 110 pounds, you know. Because most men who are 5'4", 110 pounds wouldn't be able to pass boot camp, you know. So that's the difference right there, right? And so, us being able to speak about this kind of stuff exposes our ideas and exposes us to scrutiny and forces us to reevaluate our ideas. Like I've constantly had to reevaluate my ideas about like I brought up, like the female and, you know, the homosexual thing, you know. So it's like, well, until we can find a better solution, well, we don't allow them to join. No, we try to find solutions while they're in, because I don't want to stop anybody from pursuing their dreams of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Obviously that's within reason, right?
Sure.
So there are some things that are on the fringes of acceptability, right? So that's why it's a must that we don't put any restrictions on the First Amendment. I go back and forth between. It's something that I go back and forth on, but I can agree upon until we find a better solution. With the whole, hey, I don't like non-descriptive, hypothetical person X, go kill that guy. Or a person. To take off all sexes and ideas so that there's no way that people can twist this into, I'm actually talking about a particular person. No? So, go kill this person. I think that law is a good law.
Well, yeah, because it's inciting harm. The reason is because if you incite harm or...
Well, where does that stop, though?
Well,
Where does that stop? If I say something that offends you, that hurts your feelings, which then in turns puts physical stress on me, which then now puts physical harm on me. So your speech alone physically hurts me, therefore you are not allowed to speak. See how people try to twist that? That's what they've been doing in these college campuses. Ocasio-Cortez, she did the same thing with a photo. But it's okay to depict Jesus Christ as, a hippie who smokes pot. It's okay to offend some people, but it's not okay to offend other people.
Right.
And then if we do offend the Christians, well, grow up. You offend a Muslim, you're a racist bigot, and you deserve to be thrown. I was like, well, how are we having these double standards? We have to listen to you talk, but we can't. But you can't listen to me talk. I have to be open to your ideas. And this is I tell you how to live part of society versus I'm a responsible adult. I know how I want my life to be. What do you think about the wall?
I was looking into it. There's going to be a lot of environmental problems, with migrating animals and stuff. Also, there's issues with.
What do you mean the animals migrating? There are land-based mammals that are migrating between.
Apparently, I didn't really go into any further looking into it. In order to say that's true or not.
We just read the headline and that was it, or I don't know of any.
Yeah.
Animals that
maybe armadillos or something.
Armadillos.
Armadillos. Armadillos. What is it called? Alright, what's it called when the government buys your property? And
yeah. Shoot, I knew what it was called.
I just
had it in my head.
I did an essay on it last week. I forgot.
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain, yeah. There's going to be a lot of issues with eminent domain because people own a lot of property along the border where the wall would have to be built. So yeah, that poses a problem. And then, but the thing is, it is a national emergency. It is a huge issue. Whether or not people are going to be I don't want my property going to this or not. There's going to be a lot of people that are sure, pay me, I will give up my property. But then there's going to be an equal amount of people that are no, I don't care. I can build my own fence on my own property. At some point, if we want to get the wall done, some people are going to have to pay for that. And I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it.
You don't know if the wall is worth it?
Yeah. Because then we make mad a bunch of potential voters, and then they turn blue, and we get more of the same. Although if we did get the wall finished, that'd be nice. That'd be really nice.
So it would be nice, but you're against it.
I'm not against it. I'm like saying which way the wind will blow, you know, because one, I have no say in it right now. I'm not a voter. So
Doesn't mean that you don't have a voice. You don't have the right to speak about it. You can be very opinioned upon it. You can write letters to the congressman and all the other stuff. You know, you're a future voter. You're a potential voter. You are going to be voting at some point in your life.
Right, next year.
So, just because you don't write this is the thing that really bugs me. Just because you don't vote doesn't mean that you don't have a say. If you don't vote, you still have a say. It just means that you didn't vote. For whatever reason why you didn't vote, you didn't vote. But if you have an opinion about something, you're allowed to have that opinion.
If you were born here, or you are here legally.
Your right to vote is your right. If you did vote, great. If you didn't, whatever. Not voting does not take away any of your rights.
Right.
Because it's your right to vote, and it's your right not to vote. So when people are like, well, did you vote? And you say, no. Well, there you go. Well, yeah. I wasn't around for slavery, but yeah, I think we're all going to be in agreement that that was a bad idea, and it was a good thing that we got rid of it. You know, I can sit back and I can criticize it. You know, doesn't mean that you don't have an opinion on the matter. You definitely have an opinion on the matter. If you want change, then yeah, then go vote, or talk about it to make other people go vote, and you can continue not to vote, but inspire other people to vote. Right?
Right.
It's stupid. It's the most ridiculous argument that I've ever... And the right likes to use that. You know? Well, did you vote? Well, then you can't complain. Well, yes, you can, and you have the right to, and by all means, please do.
I wanted... Complaining's nice. I think we complain too much as a society. I think we've lost the very fundamental thing that made an American back in the day. It was, I don't need anybody's help. I can do this. I can go from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast, take my family, put them in a little wagon, and go all the way there with the money in my pocket and build something new, because that is who I am. I'm an American, I can do this. Now it's, I'm an American, I need welfare. I'm an American, I need the government to help me get through college because I can't do it alone. I need this, I need that. It's like...
Where do you think that came from, though?
I had no clue. FDR and all the Apple alphabet soups that he made of new government programs, and he kind of changed the role of the federal government and the people.
Well, changing the role of the federal government doesn't really change the heart of the culture.
Like under Reagan, we had all those people that are like better dead than red. We're like, we were willing to fight communism until we all are dead. And now it's like...
Yeah, it's tribalism, and tribalism is okay for a little bit, but more important than having a common enemy is having a common set of
Right.
values. You know? It's easy to rally behind enemies.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what they're doing right now with the class warfare, identity politics. If you're black, then you should have voted for Obama, which is racist. Is it racist? No, it's prejudice. Racist is believing that you are superior to someone else simply because you are of a certain ethnic background. That is racist.
It's ignorant and prejudice.
So prejudice. So that's prejudice.
Assuming someone should do a certain thing because of the way they look. That's prejudice.
Right.
So like, when you like...
It could be racist if you believe that only an inferior person would
Right.
vote for somebody. But to believe that because you're black, you should be a Democrat. And if you're not, then you're an Uncle Tom.
Right. All the like atrocious war crimes that have happened under him, and he's gotten like the Nobel Peace Prize and the human rights of war.
What type of war crimes?
Honestly, all those we would be like, yo, there might be terrorists here. It's been a few days. We don't know. And he was like, just drop the bomb. We'll see what happens. And they'd strike it, and it'd like turn out a little bit women and children. But one time, fine, that happened once. Crap, let's not do that anymore, right? We won't go on old information. 2, 3, 4, 1,350 Predator drone strikes under his
administration.
Yeah.
And how many of those killed terrorists?
I would say.
See, that's the question.
All right.
Right? Was the collateral damage worth the?
Definitely, there was definitely more civilians killed than there were terrorists.
Right.
Which it's
and that's how a coward fights, in my opinion. I'm gonna throw something at you and run away.
Right. I mean, we did something similar in Vietnam, and
did not work.
Yep. And it just breeds more hate.
You have to put boots on the ground and be more scary. There's two things that you have to be. One of two things, I think. You have to be that these guys are here for the long haul. They're on our side. Let's help them so that they can help us, and then in turn we can help ourselves. So that's what we need to be able to put down, right?
Right.
And the other side is just to be more scary than the other side.
Right. If they're like, hey, we can't tell you because the Taliban's gonna kill us, with like.
And you take someone's head off, and then, all right, so where's this guy?
But that
people are gonna tell you.
Right.
But then that's terrorism itself, and that's not what we want to do.
Exactly.
Right. But if we can prove to them that we're gonna be here for the next 70 years,
and we'll help you,
helping you guys out like we helped Japan.
But we don't have that credibility.
And Germany. You know.
Right.
Rebuilt Germany, rebuilt Japan.
I mean, we lost that credibility though, because was it Iraq first or Afghanistan?
Yeah, it was Iraq.
Yeah, we tried to do that
back with Daddy Bush.
Yeah, and it's the bureaucrats that get in the way of, like.
It's one of those things where it's difficult because you need bureaucrats.
So you don't get
So you don't get the warmongers.
Yeah.
You need the warmongers.
So you don't get the peacemongers.
So you don't get the peacemongers, which is just as dangerous. Peacemongers are just as dangerous to freedom and society as warmongers. Warmongers, you create enemies. Peacemongers, you allow people to come in and take your shit.
And you just roll over.
And you just roll over and die on your knees.
I mean, do you think Trump's pulling like our troops out was bad?
Trump. You know what's funny about Trump is that he's not even really conservative. Pulling our troops out under the current plan that we have to try to fix Afghanistan is a good thing because it's going to save American lives in the short term. In the long term, it's going to cost American lives.
Because we're going to have to go back.
Because we're going to have to go back. And just like with the Iraqi war, it's going to be harder.
We've been to Iraq before more than once.
Yes. Under Daddy Bush. First Gulf War. And then Baby Bush went back. What would need to happen is that we change the way that we operate within that country. We change who we put in power. There has to be a transitional government over at least one generation as we open up schools and teach not American democracy, just democracy, period. And give people the idea of everybody should have an equal opportunity for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what we should be pushing forward. Not American democracy per se, but that idea. That idea is actually Christian, Buddhist, a lot of other different types of religions where treat everybody as an equal, allow everybody an opportunity to move forward and move within their ranks and cast their lot in life. That's more of it's a religious aspect more than it is just something that we just said, oh yeah, this is a good idea, you know.
So why not? Well, I'm just curious. Why not push for our democracy? We have more countries that
because the American form of democracy has a lot of stigmas that are attached to it. A lot of these countries who are idealistically Muslim. Here's the thing about Islam. Islam is a religion, and within that religion states how governments should operate. Essentially. So basically it says this is how a state should operate. The rule of law. That is the ultimate goal of Islam, is to run the government and essentially run the world. It's the Islamic world. So first Islamic state, then Islamic world, right? Islamic state, Islamic country, Islamic whatever. That's the ultimate goal of Islam because it's designed that way. I think it is possible to have a Islamic democracy for countries that declare Islam as their state religion. America does not allow for a state religion. And that's one reason why you couldn't have American democracy in a Islamic country.
But then you have like the different sects of Islam that fight, Sunnis and Shiites.
You have different sects of constitutionalists that argue and fight against each other.
True.
And as long as they can have an open dialect and be able to speak back and forth to each other and have an open government and vote these things and have a basis,
right.
a basis fundamental thing that we all can agree on. We all should be able to agree on the Bill of Rights. Applies to every single man and woman.
Right.
I don't say child because certain rights should be afforded to children, the very basic fundamental rights. But the right to get married at the age of 7 and all that other crap, no. You know? You should not be afforded all your rights at the age of, 7.
It was, well, on that note, there are certain Democrats that want to lower the voting age to 16.
That's a huge mistake.
And, well, yes. Yeah, they would.
The reason why is because they're losing the black votes. Because
because yeah, I know.
They're starting to lose the black votes, and so they can't. And people are starting to become a little bit more educated thanks to people like Jordan Peterson,
Mm-hmm.
Ben Shapiro, and
Candace
Thomas
Owens.
Sowell, Candace Owens,
Larry Elder.
Larry Elder, another huge influential person. Larry Elder is like the forefather to all the other black people being able to step up, because he just said, I don't give a hell, and I'm just going to say what I'm going to say, and I believe what I say, although I don't agree with everything that Larry Elder has to say. I do believe that there has been a long history of systemic racism within the system of government. Affirmative action is one. Minimum wage is one. Planned Parenthood is another. The prison is another. If you look at Sanders, who is the I can't remember her first names. Look at Sanders, or Saunders, or however you pronounce her name, the Planned Parenthood inventor. She had something very interesting to say. She said that the collateral damage that will happen to white people is worth it, I'm paraphrasing, is worth it if we are going to keep black people down. Because black people breed like rabbits, and people who are surrounding them, if you took a white person and put them in a black neighborhood, they would be infected like they were a virus by their heathenism, and therefore would only be a step above black people because they are
indeed still white.
They're still white. And it is important that well-educated people breed more and not stupid people.
So it's kind of like a social Darwinism.
Eugenics, essentially what it is, and that's where the Nazis got it from. Is from Sanders.
Hey, we created the Nazis.
We really did. It was those types of ideas. Oh, and you know what? She wasn't the only one. It was something in America that was really heavily discussed because we were trying. The powers that be at the time were trying to keep black people down, and that was the only way that they can do it, is to show that we were genetically, or try to show that we're genetically inferior and all this other stuff. We've gone a long ways from that, but Martin Luther King's dream, I want to be identified, I have a dream that, I'll be judged by the content of my character, not the color of my skin. That's what we're doing today.
Right, I think...
White people are self-deprecating in that sense, is they see themselves as these tyrannical things that caused all these problems.
And it's like...
There's no society in the entire world that has ever existed ever
that was
not tyrannical.
I'd had a conversation of this, and I was like, you were never a slave owner, I was never a slave. You don't have to feel bad for something that you never did and something I never went through. And it was like, well, white people, we took over this land, and I was like, yes, but you were also taken over by the
Europeans took over this land. See, this is the thing, is whites is a American concept.
Right.
Maybe even an African concept.
Yeah, South Africa, you have the black and white.
No, African concept, period. Because whether or not you were Spaniard, whether or not you were French, whether or not you were Portugal, whether or not you were German, whether or not you were English, no matter if you were Sweden, Dutch, whatever the case may be, you were white to them. It was an easily distinguishable thing. But in Europe, oh, you're Sweden? Oh, fuck you, I'm English. Oh, you're Irish? Well, fuck you, I'm English. Oh, you're English? Well, fuck you, I'm Irish. Or you're everybody else? Well, fuck you, I'm German. Right? So that's race in Europe.
That's one way to sum it up.
That's race in Europe, Same thing with the Spaniards, So that's race in Europe. England is an interesting dynamic because you do have black people there. And there is this whole nationalism that's going on there. Now, even English nationalism and American nationalism are completely, totally different because they're trying to protect a culture that was basically, like you said, homogenous. Whereas in America, the culture is biracial.
Right.
Black and white. It's plain and simple. 100%. There's no other person or persons that has ever existed in the history of America that was ever considered less than human by law. The reason why Native Americans couldn't vote and didn't have equal rights is because they were seen as this is gonna sound silly, but because they're native here, but they were seen as a foreign identity.
Right.
And the history between the Native Americans and the English, the European settlers, was tumultuous at best.
Yeah, they had bad ideas about both sides had bad ideas about the others.
Right. Well, one did invade their land, but then was kind of like an oxymoron. Is like, well, we don't believe that anyone owns the land, and yet there still was tribal territories, and so it was a difficult situation, and it was something that ended up creating a nation, and that's why the Native Americans. But they were never considered by law to be less than human. They were never, ever, by law in American history, anyone's property.
Yeah, that was just us who were special.
It was only black people, right?
Right.
That's why. Not saying that the Native Americans, not saying that the black people were the only ones that were wronged. Most definitely not. I mean, Native Americans have been wronged, but they're still considered to be a sovereign nation within America that's protected by, right, like Puerto Rico, right? They're a sovereign nation. They can still vote.
They vote?
Yeah, they vote. Now they can. but they're sovereign. That's what, not instead of a foreign entity, they're a sovereign nation. They were still considered a sovereign nation. They're a sovereign nation that couldn't do crap to America or be able to resist. You know, it's not funny, but it is what it is. I mean, what nation in the world was ever created by not invading another land?
Ooh, not invading another land?
It was never done.
Any sort of African countries or the South American countries?
South American, yeah, they did. There was the Incas and the Mayans and all the other different tribes that they went around and capturing and beheading their 30 people a day type of a thing. It wasn't citizens that they were doing that to.
Do you think they went as far as other countries?
Yeah, of course they did. They raided other places. See, back then the country wasn't Brazil. Brazil, you know, it was, this is our territory. Oh, there's another guy over here in their territory. We're going to go over there. We're going to invade their territory.
Right.
Take over their territory, bring their people over, enslave them, and, you know, do whatever we do with them.
Yeah,
right?
You're not supposed to be thinking of like the actual map of today because it wasn't
right.
like
No, it wasn't like that at all. At no point in human history did we not invade a land and kill something in order to be able to be secure in that land.
Until capitalism came.
Even when we were the first Homo sapiens, there were other sentient things that we moved in on and fucking and didn't mean to cuss and freaking moved in on and kicked them out or murdered them. Right. We moved in on them. Homo sapiens moved in on them. Right.
Right. My big club bigger than your big club.
All right. Or my spear is better than your spear. You can poke, I can throw. So, she's probably on top of the table, huh?
She's got a bunch of stuff in her
I'll beat her later. No, but
I was telling them, I was like, it's not like Europe was this like perfect country that or a perfect area that was never invaded. They got invaded by the Mongols, the Turks, the Ottomans, the Moors. And I was like, it's not like you guys were never touched and you went around invading everyone else, and so you guys need to feel guilty for like anything. I was like, you guys were invaded countless times.
Well, there you go, put it in a Europe thing. I mean, like you said, we're like anybody who's been here for like more than 2 generations has been mixed heavily.
Yeah.
And essentially, America is almost a new race in and of itself.
Yeah.
You have the people with Latino heritage mixing with people who have European heritage. There's very few people that say, I am straight German and nothing else.
Right. It's always been easier for us as Americans to say white, black thing because there's so many different...
Because that's the way it was.
Yeah.
It was white and black, you know? The Polish came over here. How many Polish people are pure Polish in America?
There's...
How many
I was
pure
going to say there's
Irish?
none, but there's probably like...
Oh, of course there are. You know, how many people, you know, how many people, like according to the research that Thomas Sowell did, something like 3% of the population of white Americans had anything to do with slavery. Anything.
There's white Americans today that you have black blood in them and stuff. It's like somewhere back then they married a black guy, had a kid, and then that kid married a white person, and
or the other way slave around. Owner,
or that too,
dipped his stick in the honey.
That too, but that'd be way farther back then, and then you'd be completely white. Like, because at that point, it just that many generations in.
The point is that it's like
it's a melting pot of a bunch of different...
America is a biracial country.
You know what's cool about that though? Is you can't really like chemical engineer anything to kill us by a race because we're all sorts of different things. Because you know, there were like back in the day there were certain things that would wipe out like Europeans, but that like Africans were immune to. Other way around, there were things that Europeans were immune to that Native Americans weren't immune to. We should have the immunities from everywhere.
Alright, now you're being ridiculous.
Well, theoretically, shouldn't that be that way?
No. It's because we're isolated, that's why.
Oh.
If we're isolated in any way, shape, or form, then the more isolated you are, the more prone you are to foreign diseases.
Shucks. Yeah.
But the more you interact with people, supposedly the less.
I was weird to say. Apparently, we're like one of, like, us and the Romans were one of a very few. We're one of very few established nations that's ever successfully been multicultural, yet under one government and one like where everybody felt they were one people. It's been done like twice with us and the Romans, and without it falling apart. And
I mean, eventually it did.
yeah, well, yeah, but it wasn't because of that. It was because we ran out of money. We don't have enough troops. The Ottomans had
corruption.
guns. Yeah,
100% about corruption.
and the Ottomans had guns and they didn't. So something better. I mean, well, not better. Something more.
Better?
Yeah, more advanced came along because I wouldn't call the Ottomans better. They were very.
Their weapons were better?
Their weapons were better.
Well, there you go.
She's like over there eating. You better hope it's worth it.
Well, it's been an hour and 6 minutes. I think we had a very healthy discussion
Between
about,
two ferns.
That's not a fern. On a table of flowers.
Yeah. Between two shrubs.
But yeah, so. But I'm gonna try to talk less next time.
Okay. Can I make this a Sunday thing?
Yeah, we'll make it a Sunday thing. Sunday breakfast.
Okay.
Father-son Sunday breakfast.
Alright.
All right. Love you, son.
Love you too.